Welcome to Live with Greg, or Live with Greg, depending on semantics.
God damn it!
God damn. No, like, god damn. We're here for round 3, but it's really round 2. And that's
Yes.
round 2.5, maybe.
2.5. I know, I was kind of wondering if I should tag on what did work out, because it's about 40 minutes.
So there's 40 minutes of audio that's still
Yeah.
good. And we talked about some good stuff. I just feel like, do they have enough background knowledge based off of the first 18 minutes? Just because we cut back, we're like, oh, remember that thing we said at the beginning there? And then this. But they can catch on. You have a smart audience, right?
I think people are smart.
Well, there you go. We're good.
So season 10 opener
Yes.
with Jacob Ben-Shmuel. I had to do that.
Shmuel, I can't believe you. After the conversations we've had.
I know.
Wow.
I know. Just start off like
Just start off with
bam!
right with the sucker punch, huh?
Right.
The
So
1-2.
sad.
Is this how you treat your guests all the time?
All the time.
Wow,
That's
great.
why I rarely have guests.
I'm starting to understand that now.
I'm lonely.
No.
Yeah, season 10 opener.
Yeah, season 10 opener. It feels good so far. It feels good.
All right, so you're Ben-Shmuel.
So the way I say it for people is like, shh, as in like, shut up, like shh. Moo, like the cow, and then just the letter L, Shmuel.
Shmuel.
Yeah, Shmuel.
Shmuel.
Yeah. You got it.
So your father's name's Shmuel.
Technically, yeah.
Technically.
Yeah, that isn't like his family's name. Or my mom's. They like chose to.
You just gave it to him?
Yeah, they gave it to themselves, honestly.
Really?
I was good with their old last name, but
Oh, they're using that as a last name?
Yeah.
Because Ben is son of.
Yeah, and then Shmuel is Samuel.
Should be his first name.
His dad's name was Seymour.
But Shmuel should be his first name.
Technically, I don't know, because I'm not really a good Jew or Hebrew speaker. But like from what I understood, my dad made it Ben Shmuel, or my parents said Ben Shmuel, like, so I'm Jacob, son of Samuel, or he's Levi, son of Samuel, blah, blah, blah.
So yeah, because my dad, I'm Yitzhak Ben Leber, and Leber would be my father's first name. And that's the way
Right.
I grew up learning the name sequence was the first name of the father. You're son
Yeah.
of that.
That makes sense to me. I just never paid attention enough to know, to be honest. I kind of just rolled with it.
And there is 6 minutes of information no one needed.
Nobody needed or asked for, so that's okay though. Maybe somebody out there is like, I was really curious of the order of sequence and names for Hebrew individuals, but
It is interesting how patriarchal the Jewish religion is primarily,
Yeah.
and yet Judaism is handed down by the mom.
right?
And
Make it make sense to me.
she is very important in the Sabbath, the opening of the Sabbath, the Sabbath prayers.
Yeah, it's true. It's like a woman.
Yeah. Did you see that British movie about a rabbi and his wife is in love with another woman, and he's a very conservative rabbi, with the curly locks.
Yeah, the whole
four
thing.
locks.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah,
It was surprisingly good. I can't remember the name.
That kind of sucks because I'm kind of interested.
It was super powerful, especially
Yeah.
the ending. It was like, where is this gonna go? Like, because he's studying to be a rabbi. He is the rabbi of this
Right.
congregation. Anyway,
His wife's going to study another woman, and
right, and
That's
there were,
definitely
and the
conflict of
three of
interest.
them were in college together, like in super tight, and it just had this conclusion where you were just like, wow, that just landed so perfectly.
Oh, well, now I want to see it.
Gosh darn it, I'll see if I can find the name for
Please.
you.
Yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
No, you're not. You're tucked back very nicely.
Look, it's a metaphor.
Oh,
Is that a metaphor? I always get confused with like what's actually a metaphor and what's like. I know what an analogy is, But like metaphor and like simile, all that kind of stuff, like miss me with it. I don't know what that means.
Maybe literally taken, you are on the edge of your seat. Like there is a part of your body that's on the edge of the seat. It's very literal.
Right. So I was right the whole time.
Yeah. Once again. Berating you.
Yeah. I think what we're learning is I just came on this show to be like abused
And I'm really
battered.
sorry for that.
No, it's like, I mean, I signed up for it clearly, so it's on me. But
What's it say on your hat? Burton.
I don't know. It's a brand.
Do you snowboard?
No, never have. One time I sled. That's kind of it. But it was like a super freak accident. And by freak accident, I just mean my friend and I were going down the hill in my backyard. And we made like a little hill to go over. So the sled went up and we got air. There's a tree right above it. So we both headed into the branch, flipped upside down.
Oh, damn.
We were completely fine. But after that, it was kind of like the snow was okay. I'm okay. We mutually don't like each other, and that's
Really?
fine.
That kind of ended, you were like, experiment over.
Yeah, as a 5-year-old, that felt like enough for me.
Okay.
Um,
And since then, you don't really do snow things?
I'd love to now, but I live in Los Angeles, there's not really so much snow opportunities unless I drive to Big Bear and rent hundreds of dollars of equipment, and like,
Right.
I'm a college student too, we're on a budget here, so it's just not in my wheelhouse.
Uh-oh. I forgot to warn the people of the house that we were recording.
Oh my god.
Well, we're going to see how this all rolls out.
It can add some ambiance.
What
I
a
feel
day.
like.
What a day.
It's really been a day, I think. What a year. 2023 has been absolutely insane, you guys.
That is so funny to say.
I know, right?
4 days into it.
4 days and I can't wait for 24.
But, this is going to be live in March, so this is had to catch you while you were available.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a busy man, so
Yes, you are.
you're welcome. I'm here.
All right, so are you still willing to dive into that topic I mentioned?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. Let's just roll with it and see where it goes, I think.
Okay. So, on the podcast that I butchered the audio to, which maybe people will hear part of it, maybe they won't.
Maybe we'll
2/3 of
gatekeep
it,
all that information from you, but
Right?
sorry. Yeah.
Like you shared with me that you currently identify as pansexual.
I would think. I think so. Like, I'm never fully sure, and that's okay. That's where I'm at right now.
So, what do you mean by never fully sure?
I mean, my sexuality's been very fluid throughout my life, from what I've gathered. Like, I've always known that I've liked girls and guys. That's very much been in my wheelhouse. But whether or not... It's more like the energy of what I'm attracted to. Like, when I was younger, I was more attracted to feminine energy. And that's what I was more engaged in. And as I got older, I got involved with people who had more masculine energy, so typically men. But I've found myself in situations with even lesbians or something where it's we have chemistry maybe or something, and I don't know. And so ever since I've had situations like that, I've realized I don't think I can say I just like guys or girls explicitly. I just like what I like, and that can be anything. So I think that's why pansexual is easiest for me right now. And should I distinguish what pansexual is compared to bisexual?
Yeah, because I didn't...
Right. So bisexual is when you like men and women, the two genders that right now in society we all agree is there, the two genders. But there's those, as we've discussed, and whether people not agree with it or not, there's more than that, because there's non-binary, there's gender fluid, where people kind of switch between them even. A lot of ancient Native American cultures even consider there to be a third gender,
Is two-spirit considered a third gender?
From what I've read, sometimes. I mean, that's how it can be best described for me to process. I think that's what the article was saying. Is in the Native American cultures, there's been up to 5 in the sense of non-binary is one of them, fluidity was another one, and then there was two-spirit as the third gender, which is what they described it as. But
and then male and female.
Yeah, exactly. So for situations like that where people are more fluid with their gender, that's where pansexual kind of fits in. It's not just men or women. You're just attracted to any person in general.
So you said that all your life you've known you were attracted to both men and women.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a real statement. You can picture when sexuality or attraction... I know I had attraction when I was in first grade.
Yeah, and I definitely did. I had my first girlfriend in 3rd grade. I was kind of a whore in elementary school, to be honest. I had 2 girlfriends at once. We were crazy back then. And I definitely liked girls, but at the same time, when I was even 6, I remember a guy friend and I talking about it, and like, you know, like when you're kids, you don't really know that kind of stuff. But like looking back, I'm like, oh, I was definitely like into like that guy as a 6-year-old, and like he was into me or something. You know what I mean? So I've always like known, but like my journey of figuring it out and then accepting it is a whole other story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
So in 3rd grade, when you have 2 girlfriends,
Mm-hmm.
was sexuality and sensuality a part of that relationship?
I thought it was, but no, because I was 8. You know what I mean? Like.
Oh, what do you mean you thought it was?
Yeah.
Like you touched noses and.
Well, I remember this was, you know, this is one of my breakup stories actually, but this girlfriend and I, Alyssa, we were scheduled to kiss on the field with like a bunch of people watching us for lunch, and that happened. And so we kissed, and we both screamed, "Ew!" and then ran away from each other across the field. At the end of school that day, we walked up to each other and said, "I think this is over," and it was a mutual decision. Yeah, getting into it, right? So in a sense, it was involved, but at the same time, no, it wasn't.
Right. Well, there was definitely something going on for both of you, like where you were going to try this in a very public display of affection.
Yeah, very public. And it just didn't work out, and that's okay. Did I
And
feel
you
any
were
shame or
both
embarrassment? No.
Horrified by the experience.
Yeah, and I think that's when we realized this is not what we think it is. So that was over for that one.
All right, but you said you had 2 girlfriends.
Yeah, the other one is one of my best friends now still. So shout out to Jazz.
Did you guys kiss in 3rd grade?
No, we didn't. But I think we've discussed this in depth now as adults, and like, she thought I was taking it too fast. I thought she was just a bad girlfriend. I was like, I want to meet you. Like, I want you to introduce, like, to meet my parents and everything. And she, you know, we were dating for one day. Not at that point, but we were dating for one day. And she was like, "Your best friend's cute. I think I'm gonna date him instead." So, you know, there's like, we both had our own things where it's like, maybe we could work on this a bit.
Well, I'd say that's a bad girlfriend when.
Yeah, it was, and she knows that.
24 hours later, I'm going out with your best friend.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it stung a little bit, but I also kind of didn't care because I was also 8.
Right.
So.
Wow.
Right. No, elementary like relationships can be pretty toxic. You would never think it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is that making you think about your elementary relationships? I feel like I just.
Well, I was just thinking about
spiral.
my elementary. Yeah, there was one girl I really liked, and then she ended up going with this one guy. I was trying to remember if it was 1st grade or 3rd grade.
Yeah, still just as brutal.
I think it
Either
was
way.
3rd grade.
I feel like 3rd grade is just a good starting point for people to be like, I have a real girlfriend, you know, like whether or not it's actually like.
I remember 5th grade being when that really started happening.
That makes
like
sense.
going out to the bowling alley, guys and girls.
Oh, like that
know,
kind of thing
outings.
happening.
But yeah.
Mm.
And one thing I've realized later in my life is I'm August 62, August 6th.
Okay.
So I was young going through school. I was like younger than most of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So as they were hitting these things of like, oh, now guys and girls are going out together, I'm still like,
You're
what?
still a little stunted. I feel like we all don't discuss that enough though, because like when you're older, like whatever, like high school, I don't think that matters as much. But like in elementary school, that's huge. That's like, it's a big difference between like being born in like September of one year versus like August of the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was huge. I remember like being invited to this bowling alley excursion.
Yeah.
And me just sort of freaking out, like, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really awkward.
I can imagine that.
Yep.
Yeah. Did it go well, that bowling excursion? Do you remember?
I didn't go.
Wow. You're just like, nah, I'm out for this one.
I forget how I said it, but I was definitely out.
But you finessed your way out of it.
I don't understand what you're doing.
And that's okay. We went to the bowling alley eventually, you know? At your own time.
Yes.
At your own time.
Still figuring out the bowling alley.
We still haven't gone yet, damn.
No, I'm gone. And I'm like, wow, this isn't quite what I thought bowling alleys were supposed to be like.
Yeah, nobody ever knows what the bowling alley is supposed to be like.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Fluid sexuality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been sexual or sensual? And I say sensual because sexual to me is like the sex act, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's sex involved physically.
Yeah.
But you can be sensual with someone, like cuddling, I'd say is more sensual than sexual.
I've definitely been sensual with both.
With lesbians and...
Yeah, I mean, like, more jokingly, I've never actually, with lesbians, like, done anything like that, but, yeah. So
Well, you said earlier that you have had experiences where there's a lesbian and you're feeling like
we were very drunk, but even if we weren't drunk, I still think it would have been a possibility. So...
Was it vocalized? Did you guys...
A little bit, but, like, we were doing it in a joking way to where we were almost like, is this a joke anymore? So it was confusing. But ever since then, like, it's been a joke that, like, my type in women is lesbians. Because it kind of is a little bit. I don't know. It just happens for me right now. That's where I'm at. But yeah, the fluidity's there. I mean, I've been sensual with men, women, in between. Sexual is a different story. But in general, I think it's just good to kind of accept the fluidity. Like, you know, like, I think, like, people get hooked on, oh, I have this type or I have this type, and that's fine too. I think, like, that's very appropriate as well. I definitely have my types as well, but I've kind of accepted the fact of, like, who I like and what I like definitely has changed throughout the years. Obviously, as I'm, you know, a young adolescent, young adult, whatever. But even as I get older, that could still be changing, and I'm just open to whatever my preferences will be open to, you know?
And I can feel I'm so stiff in this conversation.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, because I'm curious about, like, your guys' perspective too in terms of your generation. Because I try and talk with, like, not even my parents about it, but, like, I'll try and, like, hear older perspectives. And I get it, but I think I don't too. Because I've also grown up in such a liberal area with a lot of my friends in the community being, like, you know, out too in that sense. So I'm almost like hyper used to that fluidity and that mindset. So for you, like, where does that, like, stiffness come in? Like, where does that become?
Well, I think it comes in from my own unease with sex.
Uh-huh.
And how it's charged and triggering for me still.
Mm-hmm.
So I have bad experiences that are sexual experiences.
Yeah.
And I have thought there is energy in me of, I'd say, like, and this is going to get me into boiling water.
Okay.
But say la vie, because there's energy in me that I feel. I can, a train of thought, like homosexuality is wrong.
Okay.
Anything beyond the
status quo kind of
status
thing.
quo
Yeah.
is wrong, and I feel that energy in me.
Right.
And even though on a logical, mental, spiritual level,
Yeah.
I like, well, that's chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still a process going on.
And I don't think you're alone in that at all. Like, of course, like, a lot of, like, old people feel that, but, like, I feel that. You know what I mean? Like, internalized homophobia for a lot of the LGBT community is a very real thing too. Kids my age, like, it's a universal thing because we all, you know, like to have, like, the normal, like, we all want to have, like, you know, the home and the car and the kids or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, everybody likes to kind of buy into that a bit, and part of that is, oh, I want a partner of the opposite sex, or, like, and that is the normal. The majority of the population is straight, which I think is important to note too, you know what I mean? But it's okay to not apply that too, and that's a huge thing to kind of, like, decondition your mindset.
Yeah. Also, fluidity.
Mm-hmm.
Like homosexuality, lesbianism, like
That's
that was
one
talked about, right. But fluidity was whole. That's a very new
thing.
And
it's new, and, like, even, like, I've kind of, like, gone fully gung-ho into that, it's still confusing for me a bit too. Because I don't know. It can be tricky because, like, oh, if you just like guys, you just like girls, or, like, you just like guys and girls. That's kind of, like, how it... But I think fluidity is the best way to explain it when I think about it more. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know how they diagnose, like, autism or, like, ADHD? Not that being gay is the same as autism, to clarify. But, like, you know, those, like...
We have a drug for that.
Exactly. Thank you. Where? When? But they have different, like it's a spectrum now is what they say, because it is like you're not like you can have Asperger's where it's like a milder case, or you can have like
spectrum autism and
yeah, exactly, because or with ADHD too, like it's everybody is affected differently by the world, and they affect the world differently. So in terms of sexuality, it's the same thing. In terms of like in any kind of conversation, it's never black and white, right? So why should it just be straight or gay?
So I think if I look at my own life, I definitely have questioned my sexuality in times in my life more so than other times.
Right.
Part of, for me, what I was like, well, what's real? Because I have different energies in me.
Yeah,
I definitely
of course,
have
of
feminine
course.
energy in me.
As you should.
Masculine energy in me, right. But I'd look at, okay, whenever I'm fantasizing and like thinking of masturbating,
Yeah.
I'm going to women.
Right.
That's what's happening. And it's not really consciously I'm thinking like, and
I
did,
want to, but
yeah.
that's just what you're almost like inherently going towards, and that's you speaking to like yourself and your needs, and that's how it should be in that sense. That's the last thing you should question in that sense.
But there's always sort of a checking in of, well, what's real? What's going on?
And that's good too, yeah.
And I would say that part of in my experience with sexuality is so much of it's going on in my head, imagined. And the realization of it, well, let me say this, that the best experiences of realizing it is when I let go of that. It's like a meditative state where you're really in the moment.
That's the best way it can be, when you're just present and you're not overanalyzing or just doing it because it's there. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's because it is what it is, and you're part of that. That's okay.
Right. And when one thinks about long relationships, I think having a vital sexual life in a long relationship is rare.
Definitely.
The ones that I know of where it existed were where they were celibate till they were married.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the relationships I know of that were long-term, where they're still holding hands in their 50s and 60s and 70s and loving each other.
Is because they waited.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's because they waited, but I'm saying that is what happened.
Yeah, you do see that correlation, is what you're saying.
There's 3 relationships I know of, and that was...
Interesting. I don't know.
And we're also, I think, in a time, like I remember having a conversation with my grandmother about sex. And it started off, I think, where her and my grandfather had, you know, the Lucy show? And how they had twin beds separate, you know, with nightstand. That's how my grandma and grandpa's beds were.
Really?
Like I asked her once about that, and she said, well, one, it's very romantic to sneak into another's bed.
True.
And I was like,
I could see that. I could see that.
And then she also spoke about how talking about sex just wasn't in, like how fluidity is new to me.
Yeah.
Talking about sex just wasn't in the realm of her growing up.
Interesting. See, and those are huge differences in just how you even navigate sex in the world. Because like I'm like I haven't been very sexually active in my life, but I am very pro sex and very open to talking about all of those things, sexuality, sex in general. So I think there's a huge difference in just how we process that kind of stuff too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think culturally, like you just brought up, I remember reading a book about the Aborigines of Tasmania and New Zealand, Australia.
Yeah.
And it was saying that, like, it was natural, like you'd see a grandmother touch the testicles of her grandson, you know, like 8, 9 years old, and laugh and make a joke, you know, like, look at the little gay, you know, like, little boy.
Yeah, damn.
That wasn't a thing.
Right.
And how, like, there'd be a couple, but maybe one would go off with someone else in the bushes, and, like, the whole village would be kind of like... And I think the point of the person writing it was sexuality was very open and common.
Right.
It just was.
And I wonder, like, how, as a society, like... I just don't know how, you know, in terms of, like, in the past, like, when sex was, like, such a closed-off topic, how it was productive, I guess, in that sense. Because I know for me, the reason why I've been able to be so much more comfortable with sex and sexuality in general and, like, know thyself better is because I've been able to be so open and hear other open perspectives like that. Like, I think if it was really closed off, I'd be, like, much more regressed as a person, even, just from that. Like, I don't think I want to, like, grab a friend's testicles or anything and, like, do that joke either. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not saying that far, please. But, you know what I mean? Like, just, like, that expression. And you learn a lot. You get more comfortable with yourself in it. So, for me, personally, I just find that more productive. I can see why for other people, though, keeping more to themselves is more productive, too. And there's that fluidity thing again I'm going to bring up, like, not in the terms of sexuality at this point, but in general, like, being open to there not being a status quo in terms of any of this. Like, if some people want to be more open to communicating it, then do it. If you don't, that's fine too. If you want to sleep in the same bed as your partner and that works better for you, gung-ho, my God, go for it. But if it's better for you guys to be in separate beds or even separate rooms, why should we be judging that? If that's what works, don't fix it. It's not broken.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because what you just brought up, there's close friends of mine, and I know they've had separate rooms for a while. I don't know if they still do.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I remember thinking, like, that's a sign of something wrong.
Right? But why should it be?
But here's what I'm tripping on.
Yeah.
It's wrong for me. Like, I personally would not like that choice.
Exactly.
So
that's fine.
Right, but I think what happens is so often what isn't right for me in the moment, I then put the world into that lens.
Because it's my viewpoint. So, like, why shouldn't I impose and be like, are you guys okay? Because that feels what's appropriate to us, because that's what you would want to be asked in a sense. But they're not you.
Right.
So, you know, that there comes the fluidity and the openness, just being open to hearing, oh, and how does that work for you? Just prefer that, or, you know. So I think even in just those conversations or those moments, even though it's not directly related to sex or sexuality, it can apply because there's answers there.
So is sexuality and sensuality a common energy, like open energy with you and your friends and peers?
Oh, definitely more so, I think. I mean, it depends on the friendship too. You know, like, everybody has their own bounds. But I have a few friends where, like, in particular, we can just talk about it for hours, or, like, we can get, like, explicitly, like, sexual or sensual with each other, and, like, it can be a good joke, and, like, it's fine. And I don't even know. So you can even see, like, different people's, like, preferences and tastes too. Like, for me, like, I have a few artists I like that are, like, just completely sex positive, and by that I mean, like, I got a tattoo just a few days ago from an artist, like a musician that I'm a very big fan of, Brooke Candy. Shout out to her. I don't think many people are gonna like her music that I'm mentioning this to right now, but, like, she has a whole album called Sexorcism, like, with songs called Come, and, like, it's just incredibly raunchy and vulgar. Would I ever express myself like that? No. Like, that's pretty far. But, like, I can appreciate, like, the artistry and the creative expression, and, like, just sing about cum if you want. It's fine. Like, you know? So I think in that aspect too, like, you can just see different levels of comfortability and expression in all forms, whether it's in conversations with friends, whether it's, like, what you listen to, how you dress, like, it's all there.
I am a hardcore Prince fan.
Yeah.
And on one of his earlier albums, he has a song called Sister. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that.
Exactly.
And that's pretty controversial.
Right, it's pretty controversial. Prince was, like, very controversial for, like, at the beginning and throughout his career in general too. Like, he loved breaking those bounds.
Yeah.
That's what I love about artists and artistry in general, and what I aspire to do. Maybe not about cum, but, like, you know, just break bounds for myself and for others.
You know, speaking of another artist, like,
Yeah.
I saw Madonna's recent social media.
Oh my gosh, it's
And
crazy.
And I'm thinking, this fucking woman's in her 60s.
Right.
Like, and there was at first I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
No, for real.
But then I was also like, what the fuck am I doing thinking that?
I had the exact same process, but I know, like, exactly what post you're talking about Madonna and stuff too. At first I'm like, okay.
Where's your
No,
eyebrows?
for real. And I'm like, are your children taking these photos? Like, what is happening here?
Right,
but then at the same time, I'm like, fuck it. Like, you look good, you're feeling good clearly if you're posting about it and you feel comfortable about it. That's not my business. Is it hurting anybody? I don't think so. So why do I care?
And you know, it's super interesting. There's a podcast where this gentleman, he takes an individual song,
Yeah.
and he talks to the artist about their process of creating that song,
I'd
and what
love
was
to
going
hear
through their
that.
mind.
Yeah.
Madonna's one of the guests. And you know that song that's huge right now, the dance, I forget,
Don't say Dance Monkey.
well, how's it go?
Dance monkey, dance monkey, dance monkey. Oh, oh, oh. Maybe it's not that.
Yeah, that's it.
It is. Damn.
That,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that song.
I
Sorry.
love it. But what was interesting, because her and the producer were on, that's the one that uses the ABBA clip, right? No, I don't think it is.
We're
No, the
talking
one that, I think it isn't Dance Monkey.
Regardless, the song.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so her and the producer were on.
Okay.
And what was super interesting to me, because I just heard it about a month or so ago, was how professional she was. It came across so clearly.
Exactly.
Because you were hearing the production story.
Yeah, and it's a whole different lens, a perspective of the artist, the process, where that song really comes from.
Right.
I think that's really important too. Like when I got the tattoo from Brooke, like I wasn't asking many questions about it. Like her.
Did she tattoo it or did she create the design?
Both.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a super sick thing because she tattoos on the side now, and
Does she have equipment?
yeah, like I went to like a studio to meet her and stuff. It was like a really cool experience. I'm going to get another one from her in a few weeks.
Alright.
So but it's not like I asked her in depth like her artistry or anything. But like we did talk about like creative processes for a second, and like it was just interesting to hear like she talked about how like like she's had like agoraphobia moments before, and how like in general she seemed like a lot more reserved than I thought she would be, because like in general like musicians who like express themselves, like you kind of almost have like an inherent expectation that they're like that in real life too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool to see different perspectives, like, oh, I express this part of my life like this because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting that insight is such a different thing.
What is agoraphobia?
Like fear of like going outside.
Oh, okay.
Like can't leave the house kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, no.
Oh, fuck it. Yeah.
Well, here's what I was going to tell you. There's
Okay.
an experience I had about a year ago. Have you heard of One Taste or
Yeah. Not one.
The practice that started in San Francisco with this woman, Nicole? So, stood for orgasmic meditation.
Oh, then I definitely have not heard of I'll get into this.
So here's the thing. There's a documentary on Netflix, and it pretty much shows it in a bad light.
Okay.
And I wasn't part of One Taste or Om, but I did join a community in Marin that came from that, and the
like
practice,
proxy.
the practice was done.
Okay.
And what was interesting is there were parameters to the practice that kind of held space, and it is sexual.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the experience and what I learned from it was to be conscious, as in a meditative practice,
Yeah.
in this heightened, fully charged thing called sex.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the parameters were very, for lack of a better word, protective of the individuals, and usually it was a man and a woman.
Yeah.
But I think it helped create safe space for both involved.
Right.
And part of what I learned is the responsibility of self. Like when I talk about how I'm responsible for my feelings and what I think and what I feel 100%. It's my responsibility. A lot of that came out of this experience.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So is this practice like literally like having like sex with a person in a meditative way?
So, yes and no. So
Okay.
I'll say there's not intercourse. I'll say it real quickly,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there is tantra, which absolutely is that.
Uh-huh.
You're having intercourse
Yeah.
in a meditative, and everything leading up to that also is a
Right.
Okay. So you'd have this nest, and the woman disrobes from the waist down, keeps everything on up here, and she would lie on her back, and there's pillows for extreme comfort, and be in a butterfly position where the legs are
Like,
open and right. And usually the man, the partner, then is sitting and in such a position, and there's a lot of permission asking and all these
Consent.
steps involved. Consent. Right.
Mm-hmm.
and then stroke the clit for 13 minutes. And peaks, rises, and falls, and to feel the energy and go with it. Permissions of like asking for the woman, asking for what she wants, the man saying, would you like this faster or slower? And then a completion, and that's what the practice is. Kind of
interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting to me. Like, that sounds like a beneficial practice for sure. Like you're saying, like, especially like in terms of consent, in terms of understanding your own body, interacting with another body, communicating that. Does it get reciprocated in that sense?
No.
No, interesting.
Yeah.
Which I think is better, because I think I've talked to my friends a lot about this too, actually, how like sex in general is such a different experience for a man versus a woman in terms of just biologically, because like when a man like has sex, it's a much more external process, and for a woman it's much more internal, right? So like the way they orgasm is different, the way they just like feel it is different, the way they want to express it is different. So I feel like that calls to that a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah, it does, and all the so the social hooks that have been embedded. For example, quite often you would hear like, no, I don't know the paraphrasing, but the experience is like, let's say I ask someone, hey, would you like to own? Yeah. And she says no. So accept that, don't wig out and don't blah, blah, blah. Doesn't mean that 3 days from now it's a no.
Right.
Like I may ask that same person and they say, yeah, that sounds great.
It's in the present.
It's staying in the present. So part of the whole practice, in my experience, was staying in the present and conscious. Yeah. In a very heightened situation. What I would say is heightened internally and outwardly. You know, sex is very heightened in our society.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah. Wow.
That's such an interesting practice. I don't know. That was a cool perspective.
I found it to be very beneficial and a positive experience in my life. And, you know, like I said, this documentary came out, it's on Netflix, you can see, and it's pretty negative. And obviously, the woman who started it, like another thing that came to mind is I grew up during the Est era, Werner Erhard, have you heard of him? So he was selling consciousness.
As one does. As one does. Right.
But, you know, he was a salesperson in San Francisco and had this epiphany and then created this series called EST. And its primary thing was to bring consciousness to people, and there was money involved, and you know, you'd buy on and on and on. Anyway, he fled the United States because of some chaos that came out with one of his children and tax evasion and stuff. Oh. But, yeah. Here's, I guess, the analogy that comes to mind. Yeah. Is quite often I hear people slam Christianity and start talking about, well, what about the priest and kids and the Pope? And I'm like, okay, you no longer are talking about Christianity.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
And so with with Est, my experience with both has been very positive. I met Werner, seemed like a very nice guy. Yeah. So I guess, as in this movie I was involved with many, many years ago, the gentleman said, be careful that when you exercise your demons, you don't also exercise your angels.
Oh. That might take me a second to wrap my head around. Exercise your demons, but don't exercise your angels too. I guess I see what that means. I think I'm understanding it.
Well, like if someone watched this documentary on Netflix, they'd probably think, oh, what a fucking trash, like how could that, just horrible. That's a small slice of it.
That's like, yeah, exactly. Almost the pie.
Yeah, there's another documentary, I think it's on HBO, of some guy that is in the East Coast, and he created a similar community consciousness thing, and it's slamming it for the most part.
Well, I think in general, our society loves to slam those kind of things too, as like cultish or whatever. Which is like, I get it, I do, but we can be open minded, I guess. You know, like in general, like I think like when we're used to like a societal norm. Oh my God, that's so weird that they do that in this country. It's so weird that this like community is choosing to do that. But at the end of the day, like if it works or not, it's their choice to do it. Like, in general, capitalism, would you say that's been successful?
In general?
Yeah, but it depends on how you look at it. And you could say it's failing right now, too. You know what I mean? So why isn't there a documentary about that mocking it? There probably is. But my point is, like, in general, you can look at any sort of, like, lifestyle or thought process or anything, and you could rip it to shreds. Or you can make a mockery of it or make a joke out of it. That's so easy to do. But, you know... Back to fluidity. One last time, guys, I promise. Just like keeping it open-minded of like, maybe they do this wrong and maybe that would be toxic, but like there's also these benefits to it and I see what they're trying to achieve, at the least. Or maybe you just do see it working out, but it's just not for you. I don't know. And of course there's objective goods and bads that can happen in these communities, but like overall I'm talking about. Be open to it a bit.
Well, and there's the seduction of power.
Yeah, because power is a dirty, dirty thing for people, you know? No, it is. People get so like hell-bent on it. It's crazy. I'm not with it.
Have you experienced that in your own life where
I got hell-bent off power? Or
yeah,
I've seen it?
You felt yourself, or yeah, well, let's start with you personally. Have you had an experience where you were starting to feel more and more empowered by the environment or an individual maybe, and seeing yourself start to take advantage of that?
Yeah, probably. I mean, mostly when I was a kid. I think I had like my humbling moment pretty young. When I was in elementary school, I was a very cocky kid. Like I was an asshole, just straight up. Like I thought I was like the king of my grade, and like all my friends were like, of course they're my friends. They want to be with me or something, and like I would make these rude comments to them and stuff that like looking back on, like I would have slapped myself as a kid. Like shut up, Jacob. But you know, I don't even remember like specific examples I can bring up. But like I was just a dick. And I remember when I first moved to Mill Valley, how humbling that was, because I went from like a grade of 60 kids that I've known for years and that I felt very comfortable and confident myself in, to this whole new area that was like 400 kids in my grade, and they already knew each other, and I was the new kid, and I was more quiet, and they all, you know, had their own egos kind of in the sense. Like what I found is like moving here, there's a lot more ego involved in a kid than there was back in New Mexico. And just even in general, the wealth here in the families, like even though you may not seem like you're aware of it in the bubble, it affects personalities. So I kind of came into this like very much sheepish, and from there I've always like reminded myself of like I thought I had this power and I was this person, and coming into it I just know I'm a person, and whether or not this power is associated with me, I gotta stay true to that.
There's so many razor's edge that we just nipped upon like that, because you want to be self-empowered.
Yeah.
And grounded.
And you should be, you know.
Right, absolutely. But then there is the razor's edge of being narcissistic or egotistic.
Yeah.
Also with crowds, like thinking, did you ever see The Wall, the movie The Wall?
Mm-mm. I haven't seen a lot of movies, I hate to break it. I'm not much of a movie guy. I know.
Okay, I don't even know what to do.
I know, I get a lot of slack for that. That's part of my own power as my own person.
Well, what I'm thinking of, you go to a concert.
Yeah.
And the whole crowd's like, yeah, and like usually whoever the band leader or whoever's leader, you know, they're sort of hyping the scene, right? And directing the crowd in certain ways.
However they want.
And it feels great.
Of course.
But the negative of that is like portrayed in The Wall very clearly, where, you know, he's taking this group energy and what we saw our former president do.
Right. What are they using that for?
Taking that group energy and channeling it into negative, destructive, hateful things.
Exactly.
So that's a real razor's edge of power.
Yeah. I mean, like, power, objectively, is just what it is, power. But, like, it depends on how it's utilized, what you want to use it for, how you let it affect you in that sense. That's why being self-aware is such an important thing for me. Like, I try my best to be as self-aware as possible, because then I can navigate myself in the world a lot better.
Have you ever experienced yourself where you're witnessing that you're using your sex as a weapon?
No. And that's because for me, in general, sex was like a very taboo topic for a long time because of my own trauma and like stuff associated with it. And so if anything, I always saw examples of how it was used as a weapon upon me in that sense. Whether it was like in a possible romantic relationship, in an advantage situation, any of those kind of things, like I've seen it the other way around, which is why I think especially conscious of I don't want to do that in terms of sex specifically. But I've definitely seen it, period. Yeah.
So, you've had romantic partners.
No, almost.
So
A lot of like, oh, it could have been, but no.
no. So to this day, you haven't had a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can say that's none of your business.
Right.
Are you a virgin right now, as we speak?
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm okay with that. You know, for a long time, like, I would shit on myself for it. Be like, oh my god, you fucking virgin? Like, get out there. But, like, no. Like, we're good. Because, like, I know my journey. I know it took me a long point to get to where I am. As of now, I feel very comfortable in it, and I could have sex. And I think be pretty okay with it. And to be clear, I have options here. Like, we're good. But,
Right.
you know, it's a matter of do I actually want to do that? And for me, like, although I'd love to say, like, I'd love to be out there and kind of, like, do hookup culture and stuff, I do kind of need a connection, I think, more so than not. In order for me to at least like, really enjoy it. That's what I've kind of realized. So I'm okay with taking my time on that. And I know myself, I'm comfortable with my sex and sexuality regardless of whether or not I've had it yet.
So you've been in relationships with individuals where you guys have both talked about the possibility,
Yeah.
and chose not to pursue that so far.
Yeah. That's what I would say.
That's
the
pretty
best way to describe
conscious.
it. Yeah. Sometimes that's my biggest issue is I'm too conscious.
You're definitely someone, I think, who appreciates conversation, communication, and diving into things.
So much. I can't do anything without it, honestly. I feel so like bland and shallow to me. Not that it is,
Right?
but that's how I respond to it.
So you also shared with me that your sexual life was new news recently with your parents.
Yeah, and it's no news to the rest of my family. So
Well, it is now.
exactly. So y'all can have fun with that.
When you say the rest of your family, who do you mean?
Anybody that isn't my parents.
It's like aunts, uncles,
Yeah,
cousins.
Because I'm not really close to my family like that, so it wouldn't be something that gets brought up. But I don't care if they know. So
Right.
if you're finding out through here, you're welcome.
So, have you consciously attempted to broach? Because you shared with me that when it first came out, it was heated.
Yeah, definitely.
So, since that moment, have you attempted to broach it and like work it in as a regular part of what you share with your parents?
No.
As a
Sometimes if it comes up naturally, then I'll be like, yeah, like because like you know like I was like this, like blah blah blah. But we never dive into it more so. But I think they're waiting for my lead to just talk about it openly. But I also don't feel it necessary right now to talk about it openly. Like they're aware of it. They've done their educational stuff.
educational stuff.
They've tried to. Like my mom's read books. My dad likes to watch videos. I'm pretty sure. So like good for them. Because it's not. I don't think it's my job to educate as much, just based off of like the sensitivity of it. But when they want to have open conversations, we absolutely do. Like my mom and I have had in-depth conversations about like transphobia and like how to navigate that or like, thought processes like that. And those have been really productive, but that's only when it feels like it's not because like you're at like I don't want to be the person to educate my parents on something just because I have my own personal experiences with it because I just don't feel like that should be my duty.
Well, that's what I mean. That's not educating them. It's more having it a regular part of conversation.
Right. I feel like it can turn into education sometimes, though. Like,
Well-
you know what I mean? Like, in this conversation, like, we're just talking about it, and, like, it's opening up perspectives. But a lot of times, like, if my parents were to talk about it, it almost feels like they're like, so I don't get this. Can you explain this to me? Which is fair. But when it comes to, like, a larger scale of not just about me, but about a whole community, I don't necessarily want to speak on the whole community or act as if I've studied LGBT rights at this college. Like, that's not my foreground, you know what I mean? I can't be one to educate like that. And that's how I think it comes up more so, not my parents. So.
So it leaves your personal experience and goes into this academic realm.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's not where I can speak.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. It's more personal.
Yeah. So. But in general, if it's not my parents or family, like, I'm very open about just having these conversations in general. But maybe that's more of a trigger on mine too. I'm still not fully ready to.
Do you have any close friends that you hang out with regularly that are identify as gender fluid?
At the moment, not many, but I have had close friends who do, or have had, definitely.
And by gender fluid, was it like where one day they would identify as male and another day
as
as
a female. Yeah, yeah.
That would be real?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's my friend's sister is gender fluid, so, you know, in terms, it's pretty easy. You just say he, she, or they, and it works fine.
And what would this individual prefer for pronouns?
They say just call me Annie.
So if I called this individual he on a day when this individual felt like she,
Yeah.
they just flowed with it, or would they say today I'm...
I think it depends on the person. Like, this is the thing about kind of like, in general, because it's so fluid at this point, you can't just assume that. Like, you can ask a person, like, hey, like, is there a specific day, or is it just in general I could call you any? For this individual, it doesn't matter. You can call them he, she, or they any day, and it's okay. But for other people, it might be different. Where it's like, I'm thinking more like a he, they today, or more of a she another day. I don't know. I can't really speak on it. I feel pretty confident as a he, him. So like for me, like, I just gotta respect what they feel. But that's what I understand of it.
So would it be polite for me to ask you, like, what are your pronouns?
Yeah, that's totally. I thought that's like the most appropriate you can be. And like my college I go to is very like progressive in that sense. So most classes start off by saying, okay, introduce yourself, your pronouns, and then this. Not many colleges I don't think do that I'm aware of, but like I think that's a cool thing to like introduce. Like, what's the big deal of just asking?
So what are your pronouns?
He, him.
He, him?
Yeah, that's it. I feel pretty good as a male and only male in that sense.
All right.
But I support, of course.
Support.
If somebody wants
Like
to.
you're a pillar?
Yeah, I am the beacon that holds up gender and sexuality. That's me.
Fuck yeah, you are.
I know. I know. Finally, you're realizing it. It took how many minutes this podcast for you to get there? Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like it.
Yeah, right? Well, I'm thick. You know?
Yeah. It takes a second to seep in.
Yeah. Literally, like tea, it just permeates.
Right, exactly. Gotta let it steep for a bit
Yeah,
before you can
yeah.
take out the bag.
Exactly.
Yeah. The bag has been taken out, everybody.
Well, that could have just gone real all over the
You
place.
could have. No, I saw the ammunition there, but you didn't take the shot, huh?
That would have been against me.
True.
Shoot myself
Yeah.
in my foot.
Who else was it hurting?
Damn.
Yeah.
Do you believe that you have had choice in your attraction, your sexual attraction to others?
Can you elaborate on that a bit? Like, define like choice. Like, I had the choice to choose where I'd like to take it. Is what you mean, or like?
Yeah, like have you had choice be a part of your experience of attraction sexually to others?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I would think so, in the sense of like, there's been chances where there's been multiple opportunities in front of me, and it could be a guy or a girl, or two guys.
2 girls
Not yet.
and a cup.
Yeah, never the cup. How dare you?
Sorry, I said
No, again, you saw the ammunition and you took the shot this time.
Well, I have that unfortunate video in my
Me
experience.
too. No, me too. I don't want to.
Why is that?
The internet's a gross place, guys.
Yeah, you know what's so... Okay, I'm going to share with you. You up for a story?
Yeah, I'm up for a story.
All right. So I went to Amsterdam with some friends and had a great time.
This is already starting off.
And they have this museum of Sexuality.
Oh, okay.
And it was brilliant. It was super good. But when you go in, there was this plywood box, like, you know, I don't know, 4 feet by 4 feet by 7 feet or something, 8 feet. And it's painted black. And there's all these warning signs on it, like, you know, this is not, you're like, don't go in here unless you're like, blah, blah, blah. And Amsterdam is what it is. And I didn't go in, but I go into the museum and it was wonderful. There's like a lot of art from ancient Japan and just, you know, of sex acts and fun stuff where...
Fun little cunnilingus.
Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Like this little figurine thing where it looks pretty normal, but when you flip it over, their coitus is involved.
Right. Coitus, yes, sorry. Coitus. Of course.
Anyway, coming out, I'd happened to imbibe in one of the... in Getting High. Yeah. Which Amsterdam at the time, this is in the 90s, so like it was like being in a place where you could just go into a cafe and smoke was fun. So
which is incredible.
Right.
Sorry.
Nowadays it's pretty common, but back then it was anyway. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go into this box. I thought it was like a tourist gimmick thing.
Yeah.
And I went in, and I was traumatized.
Really?
Oh, it was horrible.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Animals. It involved fire hydrants.
I don't even know how to involve a fire hydrant.
And I was just like...
Did you say plural for the fire hydrants?
Well, because there were multiple shots.
Great.
The walls were just covered with these photos.
It's making sense now.
And I was like, gosh, darn it. Like, it's like the Two Girls in a Cup video. Like, once you've seen it...
There's no one seeing something
There's no one seeing it.
Right.
And I was like, one, why do these individuals choose to partake in this?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in an individual that's
where a fire hydrant needs to be involved? No, literally. And the world may never know for some of these people, especially the one cup.
But part of what we're talking about is our own judgments of another's choice.
Well, exactly. It is their choice. I may never understand it, but I can let it be.
Let it be.
Let it be. Just like the Beatles, let it be.
Speaking words of wisdom.
Is that what this was? The fire hydrants and the animals' words of wisdom?
Fuck no. Not in my experience.
Damn. I thought we were on to something there.
God. But another story, I may have mentioned it to you, is when I was at SFSU, I was in a sexuality class, and there was a day where this person, a special guest, was invited, and he had a sexual relationship with his dog. Yeah. And and part of what he was saying is like, well, what you're thinking about this right now is what we thought about homosexuality 20 years ago.
See, this is where my judgment does come in a little bit. I know, you caught me. You caught me. But can I explain? Well, you finish first, but...
No, yeah.
I just... Because I think there is a difference there. Like, you hear pedophiles try and say that same argument, too, where it's like, this is the same as how homosexuals were looked at. Not fully, because homosexual behavior, if you will, involves two consenting adults. That dog, there's no way it can comprehend or communicate or consent to that. Same with a child. You know what I mean? So, like, that's... Of course, I'm open to, like, hearing whatever perspective and stuff, but when it imposes on other people's safety or consent or just comprehension of the subject, that's where I'm like, this is where we kind of got to shut it down a bit.
Yeah, and I think the psychology of an individual is involved in that safety and consent. Mm-hmm. And I think a child isn't in a place to... there's no psychological comprehension of what's being consented to.
Not at all. And it can really, fuck with somebody. I don't want to get into the dog too much, but, like, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Dogs, they bark. It's kind of all they can communicate. Like, I've seen people... I don't know if you, have seen the dogs on TikTok, but there's, a lot of, dogs that, they give buttons to that will say a word like, hey,
yes,
hungry.
Yes, I have. Yes,
and that's really cool. So, obviously, they do have thought process and can communicate something. But how are you going to communicate to a dog? Sex? with owner. You know what I mean? Like that's just not there, and that shouldn't be.
Well, I can tell you what his
Yeah, I want to hear.
rebuttal to that
I want to
was.
hear what his rebuttal to that was.
Was that the sexual organs were engorged with blood, which showed like
Arousal,
and
right?
That this animal was
Partaking, I'm assuming.
right, like it wasn't under duress; it was actually under consent in this individual's.
And I see where he's coming from with that. At the same time, just because you're hard doesn't mean you're consenting necessarily. Because that's the physical reaction in sense of like mental might not be the same.
That is an excellent point.
Yeah.
Because I used to have this joke when I was doing stand-up is, maybe I am gay, but I would fuck a knothole in a tree.
Right. Because
yeah.
You can make anything a hole.
Right. Exactly. And so part of what I think the amazing aspects of us as human beings is we truly are infinite. Like we can imagine and create infinitely. That's also the danger, I would say, of us human beings.
Yeah, and will we create or destroy ourselves or our product with that, in a sense?
Yeah, and I think
we usually do destroy.
If things are coming from our spirit, they're a blessing, and that always remains. So that, I think, is a great, what do you call it when you have like a strip and you put it into water and then it changes color? What is that?
Oh, no.
Anyway, litmus test. Litmus test to action is the ramifications of the act down the road. Mm-hmm. So if this child was truly, like if it's a real blessing and a real coming of the Spirit, then 20 years later, it should still be a blessing. In fact, it should be more of a blessing, that experience that happened. It should grow from that. And that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems that an individual grows up and is traumatized by the act.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Speak on it. Speak on it.
Well, I just think about love relationships and love and how so many acts are done with the label love. However, when one looks at the ramifications, and does that bring in and bless all involved? Right. Or is there trauma and chaos?
I have two things to say on that. One, I don't think we talk enough about how love isn't always beneficial. This actually makes me one point, but kind of like it's a two-parter. Like I think like love is supposed to hurt a bit, and there's supposed to be like beauty and pain in love, because love can never be so clean cut as we like to make it. You know what I mean? Like when you're in a marriage, you always have to communicate, and there can always be miscommunication. Like it's two individuals coming together or more. It's just different individuals coming together, having their own resolve in that sense. So it's never going to be cookie cut clean. My second part of that is like in love, like what is to define like the hurt of love in that sense? Like how am I trying to communicate this? Love can be such a painful thing, but what does that make? Does that make it not love just because it hurts that bad? Or just because it feels good doesn't mean it's love either. Like people often mix up infatuation and love. People can also misunderstand love with just the feeling of pain too, if that makes sense. I don't know if I went with that the right way, but no.
Is that an S&M statement?
No. You can make it one. I just mean in general, like you could be like very emotionally hurt by a person or like by a situation, but it could still be love in a weird way. You know what I mean? It comes from a place of love, but it's not feeling good.
Can you like make up a scenario that...
I could try to. I mean, I don't know. Like, no, I can't right now. I don't know. It would take me a second and I would probably stumble on it.
That's okay. Give it a shot.
Let's say there's a couple and they've been together for like 6 months or something. And one of them, person one, is having like a conversation with person two, and like they say some real like some things that to them is out of an expressive love, but really intimidates and hurts the other person's feelings. And then let's say it's like not talked about. A week later, the same thing comes up. The person's still hurt. They're not feeling like good about it. So out of love, they express that. It leads to like an argument, and then that argument leads to like some real issues in the relationship. And maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. That's like a lot of pain and suffering, and maybe not agreeance in that situation. But it's still out of a place of love. It just doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? Love doesn't always have to feel good, and in principle, it shouldn't.
I have this very ethereal thought about love that it should actually always feel good.
Yeah.
Like life should be joyful, peaceful, loving, 24/7.
I wish I could agree with that. I almost can't.
Well,
I would love to.
I believe like that's our evolutionary end goal. Like that's
what we're
the
going towards?
bodhisattva. Yeah.
I would love. I can agree with that. I think that's the end goal, but I also think it's unrealistic. And like even from like a spiritual standpoint, like I almost don't believe in that, because like you know like how if you guys hear the first part of this season opener that made like you might,
I'll tag it on.
yeah, tag it on. Like you might be like when we talked a lot about fuck, I lost my train of thought, man.
We were talking about love and the end goal, bodhisattva.
Oh right, I don't think that like we talked about how like there can't be good without bad and bad without good. So why? I think like in order to understand like and like universal love and like peace and stuff, you can't understand that without the comprehension of or the experience of pain and anger and sadness and even trauma. So I don't know, like I don't know if I could ever, I don't even know if even if I was experiencing universal love and peace, at least for me right now, I'd say I don't know if I'd want to experience that without the knowledge of what it could be otherwise, or without the experience of my own pain and stuff, because it makes the thing of love and peace much more better and real. I don't know, that's just my thoughts. How does that make you feel? 'Cause-
Well, I think, how does it make me feel is the question.
yeah.
A little bit on guard, I can see, like a little bit like,
yeah.
like, oh, all right, that's your thing, that's not my thing.
No, and you don't have to accept that or embrace that at all. And like I said, I'd love for it to just want that thought process too. But I guess I'm just skeptical. I'm skeptical.
What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding?
A lot. A lot. I think also like Gen Z is very just like that sometimes, I've noticed. Where like, the world's ending in 50 years anyway, thanks a lot, boomers. Climate change is going to rip us to shreds, the economy doesn't let us afford our own rent. We're not lazy like you think we are. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so in general, I think like we almost have that inherent. Sure.
Nihilism.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think part of that's just like even like the internet too. Like, I know I've been overstimulated and desensitized by the internet. Like, you know that thing of like what the 2 girls 1 cup video, how you saw that and you kind of can't unsee it.
Right.
I've seen that times a million other things that I will be permanently changed. Like, I was just scrolling through TikTok one day and I saw a video from a Facebook Live of a military vet killing himself.
Ooh, God.
Gunshot to the head. I see his head explode everywhere.
Wow.
In his own apartment, his animals in the back, they get shocked and I was like, whoa. And then I was kind of like, whoa too, because I just saw.
Why is that fucking bird like put onto the social media?
Right, and how was it not deleted already? But of course, the universe let me see that at that time for whatever reason,
Right.
and it changed me. I literally just turned my phone off and I just kind of sat there for like an hour, like, wow, I had no connection to this person, and that's something I shouldn't just see scrolling, but here I am changed because of it a little bit, and that's just one example. So in general, I've seen so many beautiful things because of the internet. I've seen so many disturbing things and just the tip of the iceberg in a sense of what's on the internet of that. I can't help but be a bit skeptical or a bit nihilistic.
Maybe the challenge is to remain innocent and open in the midst of this energy of shadow and darkness and end of the world.
Maybe. That probably is the way. I don't know. My dad and I get into a lot of like conversations about that because he's like one of the most positive go-getter people I've met. Where like he can make any situation positive. I'm just not like that. And then, like I try and be like that. I think overall I'm a positive person. Not to say I'm not, but just like in certain generals like or situations, I can't help but be like, yeah, but there's this part too. Let's not like ignore that.
Yeah, that makes me think of the whole thing with the Native Americans and African people that were brought over here.
Yeah.
And how it does seem like an element of healing is acknowledgement of what occurred.
Yeah. Exactly. Acknowledging it.
So acknowledging that there are people sitting in their apartment taking a gun to their head and blowing their brains out.
Yeah. That's there. We're not experiencing it, but it's there. Or perceiving it. It's there.
It's time for my lobotomy.
Bring it in. Yeah.
Well, sir,
Yeah.
is there anything that you'd like to dive into?
We just dove into a shit ton, to be honest. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to that. I guess, what's a rose and thorn of 2023 for you so far?
What's a rose?
And a thorn. Like the rose.
A
like the
rose and a
highlight.
thorn.
Yeah. In the last.
So far, in the last
in the
4
4
days.
days. Yeah.
Though you will be hearing this 3 months from
Yes.
now. All right. A rose is a deep connection that I'm experiencing to myself.
Sick.
And the divinity in me,
Mm-hmm.
and connecting with that with faith. And
Yeah.
part of that is my partner in Moped Outlaws, the other podcast.
Yeah.
He had me commit to. I shared that I have this energy that believes I can't make it, that
Yeah.
that I'm going to fail, I cannot
Right.
succeed.
Yeah.
And he had me commit to healing that, letting that go, and I've
Good.
taken that seriously.
Good. Nice. Yeah.
So I've been working with that.
That's a good ass rose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thorn,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, is, but it's also a rose, so that's so
okay too.
interesting.
It could be.
But it is a challenge. Let's say a challenge.
Yeah. Okay.
Is the authentic letting go of my ex wife.
Yeah.
And when I say authentically, so that in all the family things that are going to happen, weddings, possibly deaths, whatever it is, that I am authentically there, open and joyful, glad to be present, and not creating discomfort for any involved,
Totally, including yourself.
including myself.
That's a big like rose thorn hybrid there for sure. That's a good one. And in a sense, like, you know, you want to like heal at your own pace, but in a sense you almost can't too, because there's like other paces that people are going at too. So just find a way to do that on your own accord in the healthy way.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but part of what you just said is there's other energies involved with one's healing.
Yeah.
But with what I shared with you with my rose,
Yeah.
is that no longer matters. My healing is most important to me, and if someone's not on board or whatever's going on,
Then whatever.
then it's not a dismissal, but I'm responsible for myself.
Right.
If I can help you, great. If I can't,
That's not
go with God.
exactly. It's not on me. That's actually really important too. Yeah. It's so easy to kind of convolute or dilute your own issues with others' considerations. But at
Absolutely.
the end of the day, like your healing should be your job and your priority.
Right.
That's something I still gotta learn a lot too.
Right.
Yeah. It's a hard one.
Yeah. Well, I'm 60, and it's kind of taken me this long to dig in this manner. So
As it can. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bad analogy based on your earlier story.
Damn, good point. Wow, again, just the abuse I have while being on the show.
Well, we started there, we end there.
It is only fair, I guess.
Jacob,
Yeah.
anything else? What about a rose and thorn in yours?
That's a good question. I should have thought about that before I asked it. Huh?
Separate, yeah.
Right, damn it.
Well, you can take your time.
I could do a rose right away. I'll say that. Because my rose is probably the New Year's Day. Just because I celebrate with friends. That was probably one of the healthiest New Year's I've had in a long time. It was great to connect and reconnect and just be present. Be present. So that was definitely my rose. Let's keep that energy going, you know. The thorn? The lack of sleep I've gotten in the last 4 days has been incredible. Like, really incredible. Like, my body, my mind, and spirit has been changed from it. And I just realize how essential it is that I get a good 8 hours of sleep every night. So that's my thorn.
That's so funny. That's so funny because I know that I'm believing that you and Jonah have been hanging a lot. And so that's also a reflection of his sleep.
A little bit. Because his schedule is not only different from mine, but it's better than mine somehow too. In the sense
I don't know about that.
No, I'm only saying, look, in the present moment, it is better right now. Because, like, I'm usually going to bed, like, maybe 12 or 1. I'll wake up at 9 or 10. Like, that was my system. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm like, maybe I'm lucky if I get to bed at 4:30 or 5. And then, like, everybody else is asleep. Like, this is on me. Like, I don't know what's wrong with my body. And I'll wake up at 9 or 10 and be like, fuck.
That's funny because I know him to go to bed around 3 or 4 in the morning.
He's been going earlier than me. Like, he's
Wow.
like, I'm tired at 1 or 2. I'm like, for sure. Like, that's you. So
maybe he's gearing up for his
he has to be.
change.
Yeah, I should be too, I guess. But definitely he needs to.
Well, don't you believe that the thorn, that's an interesting thorn, but aren't the thorns in our life also roses in the sense that our challenges are helping us grow?
Yeah, the thorns are part of our roses, or are our roses, like you said, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it's made me understand how important sleep is, and I've had some cool thoughts from the sleep deprivation too. So I'm not complaining too much. I'm just saying it's definitely a thorn because, I mean, sleep's important, y'all. It's important. So, yeah.
All right, brother.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the season opener. This is a cool thing.
Hopefully this one works.
Right?
Oh, dude.
We'll find out soon enough. Maybe see you in March, maybe not.
Now, you want to do the tag for the 2/3 one? Just say, and now,
Okay, yeah, sure. And now, here, well, how should I say it? Wait, just however I want to?
It's your lap. I'm not your daddy.
Good point. Good point. All right, and now, this is the beautiful, smooth segue to the first/second part of this cast. Enjoy what you can of it. Thank you.
He never got to a place where the ramifications of his life were important enough for him to stop.
Right.
And that's where, like the whole Bill W. thing, where he's the one who kind of, from my understanding, brought it to society like this is a disease and should be treated as a disease. Mm-hmm. And with this friend, I was like, I realized I got that. Like before I didn't get it, like it's a disease, you just stop drinking.
Right, exactly.
But with this friend, I realized, oh, it is a disease. It's as though he had a broken leg or he needed, like he was helpless.
Right.
In a sense, to do anything other than drink himself into blackout extinction.
Yeah, and that's kind of the crazy thing about it, because, like, I've seen friends and family both be affected and or pass away from that kind of stuff, and even myself, I've had my own conversations with myself about addiction. I'm pretty sure we talked about it a bit on the last one that we did together too, and in that, even being so close or involved with it yourself, it's kind of hard to realize that, like, whether it's mental health or addiction, like, it needs treatment. It's not just stop. Like you've got to, like there's steps to take that better your health in some capacity.
Yeah.
Mental, spiritual, physical, all of it. It's a whole thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about discomfort and pain as source of energy for change and evolution.
It's kind of necessary.
Seems to be.
Yeah, that's one thing I've been trying to work on a lot this semester, was because, at the end of like this last summer before I got back into school, like had many epiphanies. Too many almost. Like, it was overwhelming as hell. But it was so necessary, and part of that epiphany was like learning to be comfortable with how I feel regardless of it, because a lot of times I choose to just shut down when I'm feeling overwhelmed, or like a thing I just would choose not to feel. So that I would smoke a lot, or I would just distract myself in some other capacity. So part of my healing journey for me has just been letting myself, if I'm feeling really hurt, feel it to the fullest you can. Because that's part of the human experience anyway. It's why we're here in that sense.
Right.
But at the same time, just even regardless of that, like, if I don't feel it, what is there to do with it? Let it fester, let it affect you when you're happy too, or, it's just, there's so many ways that can not be beneficial.
Yeah, it's so wild. I just read this article of Selena Gomez, and I haven't seen her documentary.
Me neither.
But the article was deep into her bipolar thing and her breakdown, and it was documented.
Yeah.
One statement she said in the interview that I read was, I wasn't in control. I felt like I wasn't in control of my feelings, whether they were super high or super low.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very interesting because, those super highs, we seem to want to lean into those.
And hold on to them.
Hold on to
Keep
them, right.
Yeah.
But she was at a place where she realized it was out of control.
Regardless.
Right.
And that's I think, I don't know whether it's society or just human nature in itself, we convince ourselves that you gotta always be like at that good place, and it always has to be happy, happy, happy. That's not natural, everybody. What? No, our bodies are conditioned to literally feel these things in equilibrium. Like, there has to be good for the bad and vice versa. So I think we need to normalize that more for ourselves, some thought process. Like, if I'm sad, no, be sad. It's okay to be sad. Just let that happen. You don't always gotta be on. You don't always gotta be good. So that's more painful in a sense.
Man, that's too much crushing through my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you to be a spiritual person.
Yeah.
So would you say we're in agreement that we are created beings?
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. When you say created beings, you mean can you elaborate a bit more on that? What do you mean by that?
We didn't create ourselves. We were created.
Yes and no. Not to be that person, but yes and no. Because that's kind of me saying both to that answer, not to feel like such a cop-out, but to go more into that, I think that we were created by something else in that sense, but I also believe that we are that something else. We are the universe kind of thing. So that's what I think. The universe has created humans and the human experience, but because we are part and are the universe, we have consciously and unconsciously created what we are.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
The way I pictured it recently,
Yeah.
I don't believe whatever that creative element is, that divine element, I don't believe it as a single character.
Mm-hmm.
However, for my understanding, I envisioned a single character made out of water,
Yeah.
and to create you and I, it takes a piece of itself
Mm-hmm.
and puts it over here.
Right.
So it's same water,
But it's separate.
but it's separate, but it's still the same.
Yeah.
And I think you might have heard that Buddha analogy, we are drops of water, like the ocean, the bodhisattva experience is realizing that you are the drop in the ocean.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great analogy, the one that you said in the Buddhas too. That's a really good way to think about it. And I think, scientists believe that matter can't be created or destroyed in that sense, right? I think that goes into it too. Creation is just constantly recycling in that sense. So you know, what were we before we were this? Like, I was in a womb. And before I was in a womb, I was just some cells. And before I was cells, what was I? You know what I mean? Like, it's always coming from something else. It's always a source.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if this jets too far off from this part, but do you believe in the multiverse? Because that just made me think about it. Because, like, oh, like, the universe is providing this, and what if there's multiple of them? You know what I mean? Like,
Here's what I would say. I put that for me personally in sort of my reincarnation file. It's a good train of thought to open up to the infinite possibilities of creation. However, if it's systematically used as a train of thought to create separation, then it's a step in the wrong direction.
damn. I haven't thought of it like that before. In terms of, like, how that theory is applied, I guess. Definitely. Because in a sense, if the multiverse, which I kind of believe is real, if it is real, like, you know, we're all still cells of individual universes encompassing.
Still
It's
the
still
one
the drops of
ocean.
water.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Right,
So,
right.
That's
So,
the picture we thought.
so if it creates a train of thought of many oceans, then I think that's a mistake.
I agree. Yeah.
But if you're still able to hold that as the one ocean,
Then you're still on the right track.
yeah. And maybe I'm off. Like maybe that's too much of my Judeo-Christian upbringing with the one.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's because the many is the one. I don't even know.
Well, there you go. So
Because
that's it.
That's where it's tricky. And, like, I remember, like, I took last year a class on, like, exploring religions. And, like, there's some different takes on, like, how to just perceive the world. And that's what religion and spirituality kind of is, in my opinion. But, like, I don't know. Like, in Taoism, it's everything's happening and nothing's happening. And they can both coexist at the same time. Or, like, in a lot of Native American traditions, like, we are nature and we're one of them. So we give and we take. You know, there's some, like, but it all kind of resonates with the same thing of, like, oneness to some capacity.
The thing with infinity is there are no borders. There are no boundaries.
Yeah.
There's no center. And that's the thing. I think we're very centric in our thought and viewpoint.
Yeah.
You know? So it's a kind of a new thing for me, at least, to be thinking in terms of me not being the center.
Yeah, because it's so easy to think of yourself as a center, or even just to think of things as black and white in relation, but it's never black and white.
Yeah.
Never. And it's so frustrating.
Like, think of all the people in your life, and there's this element of, like, they revolve around me. But their lives are going on when I'm not even present in their consciousness. Right?
Exactly. It almost hurts to think, like, I can just
It
think about, like, us right now.
It does hurt.
It hurts, because, like, I could think, like, what is my relationship to Greg here? What is Greg's relationship to me? But outside of that, it's like, this isn't, like, what would be, like, a 45-hour long conversation, and after that, we'll both go. And then on track, the world's completely separate from your interaction with the world, and we'll pick up different things, and blah, blah, blah. And sure, we can always come back and have new things, and how does that relate to this now? But you know what I mean? Like, it's always, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is, for me, it's painful to think of people existing without me being important in their existence.
Right? Is that kind of FOMO, in a sense?
Oh, I think
that's like universal FOMO.
I don't know if it's universal. It's narcissistic.
Damn. Yeah, that's true. That sucks.
It does suck.
That really does suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
FOMO sucks in general too, though. Just like the general concept of it.
I need a definition of FOMO.
Fear of missing out. Yeah. I was talking with Bella's dad, also Greg, just about FOMO, like with like our generation, because we're raised on social media, where we can just constantly contact each other, constantly see each other's whereabouts and what they're doing. It is so much easier to have FOMO on like a minute-to-minute basis, and it sucks.
You know, it's a trip, because I just saw the post of your friend on Instagram where you guys all went to Sunset and someone set up a whole DJ system.
Which was sick.
Was sick. Now, here's the thing, I know Jonah wasn't there.
Yeah.
And as a father, you know, I felt like, oh damn, he missed out on that experience because he had to take care of his dog, and what a cool experience. But I also, and talking to you in this moment, realized I was making up a whole story from that photo.
Of like 5 seconds.
Yeah, like, so that's part of the FOMO thing with social media is we are creating stories from these images that aren't really real.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know, when I first got to college, that was one of the hardest things for me. Like, I would not let myself have a break. Before I went to college, working out every day, really healthy meals. Was I healthy as a person? Probably not. But like in general, like I had like my own kind of like drum that I was beating to. And I completely like relinquished that in the name of I need to make good friends in my own social grounding here. Because I could see people's stories and stuff. I was always in somebody else's room. I was getting 4 hours of sleep a night. Was not eating enough. Was not taking care of myself how I should be. And that was based off of my fear of missing out. So this semester, I went into it being like, hell no, create your own boundaries. Like, I went to maybe like a third of the parties this semester that I would have gone to before or just in general. And I had a way better time. Because I wasn't, even if I saw people there, I'm like, they're drinking lukewarm beer and they're not gonna remember the night anyway. So how much fun am I really missing out on? What am I really like lacking here?
Well, it sounds like you've really dug into your own empowerment, which is very good.
Oh, totally. And our last podcast we had was a big part of that, honestly. Like when we were talking like, specifically about like the drug use too, I think it was a big part of it. Like you're like, you smoke a lot, don't you? And you were telling me stuff I already knew. But I was confronted with it in a new way, and on camera, and where I could listen back to that conversation. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh damn. And like that was a huge point, like why I stopped smoking. And I did go sober fully for 4 months, and learned so much. I definitely think it's a problem now, more than I did before.
Well, I think for me, I know from my experience, there's times where what I'm feeling, like going back to a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
where I'm like, God, I want to be inebriated. I don't want to feel this.
And that's the shutting down kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Instead of letting yourself just feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so important to just let yourself fully experience it.
And I know from talking with Jonah, there's an element where he's enjoying what he's feeling, inebriated.
Yeah. But it's not, it feels diluted, I think, sometimes. Which I don't always agree with. Like, to be clear, when I first started smoking, I had to like really like reflect on like how I let the experience of smoking change me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I just remembered you talked about how you smoke to deal with your anxiety.
Right, and it started
So
as like
when
something
you
to help
went-
my physical and emotional pain. And when I first started smoking, it became a super spiritual thing for me too. Like, I would get like these crazy highs, I'd meditate on them, I felt like I would like travel spiritually, I would learn a lot about myself. And it was a super creative process for me until it became a dependency where I was doing it daily and kind of just to feel period. I needed it to eat and truly enjoy my food. If I wasn't high eating, it wasn't a good meal. If I was not high to function, it wasn't as fun. You know what I mean? Like, and it became like consequential to not have it. And I'm not gaining anything from it, I'm just maintaining. And that wasn't, that's never enough, you know what I mean? So I've got to take a step back, and my goal is to hopefully like be able to smoke again one day, intermittently, and still gain that initial capital that I got from it. Will I be able to do that? I don't know. Because now that I've gone to that point of like almost no return, I'm like, I don't know if I can ever interact with it in the same way and get that same experience. Maybe I should just find that in myself or from other mediums, you know?
I do believe ultimately, from a spiritual lens,
Yeah.
all these tools, whatever they are,
Mm-hmm.
even pain and suffering,
Yeah.
are ultimately to us being complete and knowing who we are and being joyful. Like that's, going back earlier, the reason I asked about that creative or, you know.
Yeah.
Because I think the creative element is love.
Mm-hmm.
It is joy.
Right.
It's peace.
Mm-hmm.
So, though you and I can honestly say part of our existence is suffering and pain,
Yeah.
and being with that when it's arrival, when
Yeah.
it's arrived,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe ultimately our natural state is joyful and loving.
I hope it is that. I want to agree with you so bad. I do, but like I just sometimes I see people, and I think that like when we're born, that's kind of like the natural way to go, of course. Like when we're upset because we're trying to communicate, we need something, right? Like I need food, I need water, I need my diaper changed, whatever. Toddler, us need it or whatever.
Need a hug.
Right, exactly. You need a hug. Like that's just communicating that through sadness, and that's how it should be. But you see certain people who have just felt so hurt or felt so angry from something, where that manifests into their state. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can change it back to joy, or you can also change the joy to pain. In that sense, I don't know. It's kind of all about balance again, which I think I said in the last one too.
Well, it's also choice, what you just said.
Right, choice.
I think we touched on that last time, that really there is choice involved with, which goes back to the beginning of this episode of, I think we do choose our emotions, whether we're conscious of it
or not. Well, see, and I'm going to disagree again just for the sake of this, because like we are choosing that to a certain extent, but like, if something traumatic happens to me, I didn't choose to be, I don't choose how I'm affected by that, you know what I mean?
You chose it to be traumatic.
Let's speak on that for a second. I'm going to bring up something, it might be like intense, but that's what this is about, right? Having like these conversations. So,
Yes, sir.
I've been sexually assaulted in the past multiple times. And it's taken years for me to just accept my own body, let alone others and stuff. And there was this one point last year at a party, I was very drunk. It was we had a whole danger, and then there was a whole party after that we went to. And so I'm at this party, I'm on the dance floor with people, and some guy comes up from behind me and like shoves his hand like into my ass. And I look around like, who was that? I see the guy just scoffs in my face and pushes me and then walks away. In that moment, I was like, whatever, that's his burden, blah, blah, blah. And so how I felt, non-factor. But this is a drunk Jacob.
Right.
I'm inebriated heavily.
Right.
So of course those thoughts trickle back into my past trauma and experiences. And I end up, like, I'm on the way back from the party, I'm just having a panic attack. Pull a friend to the side, I have a whole, cry session about it. Because it's deep, But, in my months since that, I've realized that moment doesn't affect me. It just brought up other moments that affected me, right? Like it was a sensitive moment for me. But I don't have to let that moment affect me. So I guess that is a choice in a sense. I could carry the baggage of that party and make it a whole other thing. But I had a great day other than that. And I let myself feel the things, I let myself cry it out, and now I'm good. And that's my choice to not let it be baggage. So does that mean that I chose how I felt? Yes, but also no, because I think inevitably I would have had to confront that regardless, because it was a violation. You know what I mean?
Well, it was an obvious mistake, I would say, on that person's part. They were out of line.
Out of line. I think it was an intentional choice of theirs to do that to me.
Yeah, you don't do that, yeah.
Yeah.
But from what you've just shared with me,
Yeah.
the actual incident itself was not traumatic.
No, barely. Like I would say not at all.
What was traumatic is your past as a youngster,
Yeah.
and these unprocessed feelings and experience were brought back to the surface through this incident at the party.
Yeah.
And I believe that that incident itself at the party, you chose it not to be traumatic. That incident, you chose not to add that to the emotional traumas that you have.
Right.
You would have been just as valid, logically speaking, to do so, to sit here with me now and say, that fucking guy, if I, like.
Right, exactly.
And there would be no debate for me, because everything lines up for that choice.
Exactly.
You've chosen not to do that. You've chosen to like leave that at the riverside in essence.
Exactly. I'm not carrying it miles down the road.
And
I don't
deal,
need to.
right. But I do, believe that as children, and age isn't relevant, so as children, I could be 50, 60, 90 years old and have a child experience that's traumatic psychologically.
Right, and that's where I almost think different about it, because like, if we're adults, we're supposed to have the tools,
We're supposed
allegedly,
Right.
we're supposed to have the tools that will just help us make better choices about what we do with our feelings and how we feel in general with our experiences.
Right.
But as children, we're not expected to have that. And if we're always children of the world, like we're always supposed to be growing and adulting more and more, like where is that fine line? If there is one.
Do you know that woman who's very well known? She's a speaker, that Brown something? Or Brian Brown something. Anyway, she's very famous. I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
She's written many books, and I saw her recently, just a little snippet of a talk, and she was talking about women, and she said a guy came up to her and said, you know, have you ever written about men? And, you know, she said, no. And she said, oh, very safe for you or something. She's like, what? You know, like,
Yeah.
he's like, I'm married with 2 daughters, and I've never felt so eviscerated by anyone else as those 3. There's times where it just is cruel. And she was like, whoa. So she started talking with men, and she was like, oh, wow. So here's the point of this story.
Okay.
She said, if a woman can sit with a man when he's most vulnerable and transparent and just be with him, and while he's that,
Yeah.
she's done a lot of work.
Yeah.
If a man can sit with a woman while she's crying and not step in to fix it or anything,
Yeah.
he's done a lot of work.
Oh, interesting. I don't know how to fully process that, honestly.
What I come away with is when we can just be with someone with whatever state they're in, like the most heightened state of their injured child,
Yeah.
and just be with it and still love them and be at peace,
And give
not
that
be
unconditional-
triggered, not be pulled into it.
Yeah.
Just be with them.
That can do a lot more.
That's a lot of work.
Interesting. See, that makes me think too, because like this, it may seem related at first, but like I'll come back to it. Like when I'm like talking to friends or something, I've learned, like I used to always think I have to give my opinion on it, or like if they're coming to talk to me, they'll be like, oh, you should do this. No, that's not what people are always asking, Jacob. Like, so sometimes, like, or a lot of the time I would try and start a conversation like that with, do you need me to just listen? Do you want me to distract you? Do you want me to do something about it with you? Like, what do you want from me right now? And I leave that open-ended because sometimes just being there as a listening board, just being there, period, with those feelings for that person is the right thing. Just letting them feel it,
Yeah.
express it, whatever.
Yeah.
Goddamn. So do you feel, because, you know, I'm like 20, and you've had many more years on me. I'm calling you old, so let's just preface that. But you know.
Take offense by that.
But with more like, you know, with your years on me, like, do you think, looking back, would you say that about your feelings? Like, is there a moment where, like, you can feel that just being would have been better, or where you just being with it was better?
Many times we're just being with it is better.
Yeah.
I think I'm a better individual
Mm-hmm.
just being with it. Including whatever I'm experiencing with just being with it.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Like you and I could be having a conversation right now,
Yeah.
and I'm extremely uncomfortable, extremely
Right.
sad,
Mhm.
extremely hurt,
Yeah.
extremely angry.
Mm-hmm.
To just be with that and present with you. And as you said earlier, to not have a knee-jerk response where I'm gonna dump that on you.
Yeah.
This one group that I worked with for a while, one of the things I learned about was not dumping my emotions, whether I thought it was good or bad, on the person. Like when you said going up to the person who's now dating someone else that you like and saying, hey, I just want to share this with you, I feel hurt. Well, in my experience and knowledge, I'd say there's an element of you dump that on their lap.
Yeah.
Like now they have that.
Right.
Now
they have to do something with that.
Well, it's on them.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't do anything, but it's there.
It's there for sure.
So there's, for me personally, I'd rather go through that process of healing what I'm feeling without dumping it on them.
Interesting. Because in that situation, I'm just curious because like I have been in that situation before, but this might just be because of my own way of dealing with it beforehand. Like if I liked the person before they have gotten involved, so for me, I feel like because I haven't shared or expressed that, it's hurting me more, and my relationship with that person more without them realizing it, because it builds walls that shouldn't necessarily be there. So in that situation, I almost feel like I should express it, and I have done that before, because in the end, do they have to like, now it's on them too? Yeah, but I think it helps both of us move forward more because I've been more honest, they know I've been honest, and we're more on the same page. And if they feel like I've dumped that on them, which I probably could have, like, I'm sorry for that, but it almost was like a necessary step for the relationship. Would you agree with that?
I would. It sounds to me what I'm feeling
Yeah.
is that the two of you were able to continue as friends because you shared this.
Better because of it too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it also is a reflection that you both wanted to be friends.
Yeah. Regardless
for the person to hear you.
Yeah.
And I was talking with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
about the importance of empathy.
Mm.
And like you talked about earlier, if I butcher your name or I say it as a joke and it hurts you, and you come to me and say, hey, this is how I feel, I'm hurt every time you say that.
Right.
To have empathy, and whether I believe it or not, like, or understand it,
Right.
to give credence to its real for you.
Yes.
And act accordingly.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Totally agree, 100%. Because like, you know, you can always not understand somebody's point of view, but just providing that unconditionality to it. Even though I don't understand how you could be hurt by that or why you would be, I can see that you are being affected by it, and for that reason I'll give that unconditionality and that kind of like, kind of how you were saying earlier of like, you know, trust everybody, but always have room for forgiveness kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that same principle of like, always provide some sort of arm to reach out to.
Yeah. You know what's fun to watch is comics with hecklers or people disturbing the stand-up. And because ultimately a comic's job is to entertain the audience.
Yeah.
And they need to hold the stage. They need to hold the power setup for it to be entertaining.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways that I see comics deal with that. Like some just put the person down. Some invite the person in and
make it whole.
Yeah. I guess there's an element of improv to all our life where we act according to the real moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think improv is necessary in life. I'm a person who loves structure and organization. Which
I heard that earlier.
Yeah.
When you talk about I work out, I eat.
No, exactly. No, like, and I kind of need that regimen to like bullshit, which sucks sometimes too. But like, you know, like this semester, like I have like a weekly agenda where I write everything on like my goals for that day, and like I have my classes set up where they need to be, and I'm like, so this is my arm day, and this is my chest, like whatever, like, you know, for the workouts and eating, and but I always end up having a fallback on that because it's perfectionist ideals, and you can never have that organization and structure stay stagnant. And there's no growth in that either. You know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna get from that long term, really? So I've learned to like let it go. Like, I have more time in 2 weeks. That is so okay. And I haven't, you know, this is like winter break, and I'm literally just going with the flow right now, and I'm just as okay with that as whether or not it would have been structured severely too. Because either way, that's the improv of it. You just go with the steps of the day, and whatever the day has for you, you kind of just let it happen. Like, if the day's meant for me to be regimented and allow me to have that, then I'll be regimented. But let's say I get a curveball from him. Oh, you owe the IRS $1 million and go to solve it right now or something. Well then, improv. Time to deal with the IRS, I guess, whatever.
I do believe like things like academics or high energy endeavors. For me, structure is important to achieving it.
Right.
You know, academics is calling on a high level of continual output.
Yeah, output management.
I think without the structure, it'd be very difficult to do that.
Right. And I think you can see that play out in society too in certain ways. Like, you know, laissez-faire, I think it's how you say, like capitalism, for example. That's the economy freeballing it, right? And that works with consequences. So then, you know, structures provide and provide and provide until it's a very structured system with a lot of benefits, but there's also a lot of downsides to that too. You know what I mean? So that's why, like, the school needs structure, and like our academia needs structure for like somebody to succeed in it. I think so. But then too much structure can be more damaging too,
Right.
because
Right.
then. Wow. What do y'all think?
Anything else?
I don't know. How's your day been?
Interested.
Yeah.
If we go to midnight where the day started, it's
Mhm.
been an interesting day.
It's been a day for sure, you guys.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Well, I guess my last question, if this is the last question, do you believe in ghosts? That might be the most loaded question of the day, honestly.
I can say this. I have experiences
Uh-huh.
of absolutely life after death. So,
Like your own experiences with it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like one with my father. That I experienced,
wow,
and I
yeah.
could tell you the story.
Yeah.
But that's all it is a story. Because I experienced it. That's the other thing with
Right.
spirituality and consciousness, is we could tell each other stories all day, but it's our experiences that we actually evolve
Right.
with.
Like, I've never experienced that from, I've only heard it from you, and whether or not I choose to believe is a whole other thing.
Right. Or like what I told you about the nightmare experience
Right.
last night with these evil, like they were right there.
Right there. And I could have totally just been like, that's a crock of bullshit. Like, wow. Like, you're crazy. Like, wow. Or, I could have done what I did and be like, damn, it's crazy. You know, sometimes I do this and that, whatever. It's up to me how I take it.
Right, so to go to your question, do I believe in ghosts? I guess I believe in ghosts the way I believe in multiverse and reincarnation.
Okay, that makes sense. Heard. Heard. Do you have any more questions? I'm curious.
Do you like your hairstyle?
I'm loving it right now. Yeah. A bit impromptu, but it was definitely...
Did you do it yourself or someone did it for you?
My friend did it for me. We did it in my college bathroom.
Really?
Yeah. Because whenever I feel like I just need a good like restart, I just do a buzz cut now. That's my good standard. But with a buzz cut, there's so much creativity that you could put onto it. I've never done any hairstyle like this. So I had my friend buy a bottle of Splat hair dye with me. We bleached my hair ever so lightly. And then they took a paintbrush and just... I want like some abstract lightning bolt kind of stuff, and they did that, and it's definitely like I get looks for it for sure, but whatever, it's fun. I just want to make sure people were as intimidated and scared of me as possible.
Wear sunglasses 24/7.
Yeah, sunglasses. I'm gonna add maybe
Never
like
smile.
some septum and piercings all over my face. And let me see it.
I don't know that. Okay.
I won't actually do that. I'm not a fan of piercings. But not my style. But I definitely like the hairstyle.
All right.
Samsung.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Pleasure doing business with you.